Hello friends and welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah and I do quilting and other creating videos. I'm so glad that you're here. I want to show you my quilt. I have spent several days at my off-grid cabin in the mountains working to put this together. This quilt started with a whole stack of unfinished projects, odd blocks from different quilts that never got done, and I took them all up there and created this. It's hard for you to see right now, so I'm going to put a little picture of it right up here. But if you would like, I'd like you to come with me. Let's go to the cabin and I'm going to show you just how I did this quilt. Thanks for watching. So here I am with my design wall. I've put it up. It's a portable design wall, and it's just easier than crawling on my knees anymore. So I've put this up and I have kind of stuck on it an assortment of the different things that I have. I have got quite a few of these blocks. I have a stack over there of some more. I found these fans. I found these stars. I have a whole bunch of these 9 patches. Who knows what I was going to do with those. I have this kind of flying geese thing that I never finished. So maybe that could be the center. Maybe I take it apart and it's a border. Not really sure. But hopefully we can come up with something. I literally went in my sewing room and I just grabbed everything together that was Civil War-ish. I also brought an assortment of these blender fabrics. I just grabbed them from my shelf. I don't even know how much there is of each, probably a yard or so. So we'll see if maybe that can somehow work in. I do have this tan fabric that's really nice that I think could somehow hold things together. I have other fabrics and assorted pieces from other projects. So we're going to see how we can do it. And we're going to see how Luna is able to manage. If you've been here before, you know Luna, but here she is already being helpful. Luna. I think she thinks I put that table there just for her. But either way, we'll see if she can leave my design wall alone while we play. So we'll get to it here. I don't know if I'm going to start it today. I don't know. I'm going to have to look at this for a while and see where it goes, but we'll get going on it. I'm so glad you're here. I can't believe it, but I feel like it's already kind of coming together. I really like this so far. I've just kind of stuck this in the center. I'm thinking there'll need to be some sort of fabric, like a stop border around here. I'm started putting these blocks around. I kind of like the way you get this zigzag, which that needs to turn around. But so this is kind of where I'm heading so far, with Luna's help, of course.
Would you just listen to those songbirds this morning? And look at that sky. I don't know that it's really showing up on here just how red and gorgeous it is. So we'll see if it thunderstorms.
Can you hear that rain? That's crazy. I didn't put my microphone on yet, so I'll speak up. You know, I grew up in the desert, and my whole life, I was born and raised in New Mexico. Till I was about 26, I lived there. So I don't care how old I get, rain and thunderstorms, especially first thing in the morning, will always be magical. What a perfect day for sewing. I hope you're doing something fun and inspiring today. So I want to explain a little bit where we're at. I, I really liked kind of the way this is looking so far. So what I did is I've sewn my 4 blocks that I have together on each side. I like the way that looks. I tested out these 2 fabrics and I really like the way this reddish one is going to look for kind of an inner border. What I did is I measured how long my side piece is here. Mine happens to measure 48 inches. It should be 48 and a half, but it's 48. So I'm going with that. So what I need to do is I need to make this center 48 so that it'll match that. Now I measured this and it's 40 inches. So I'm going to add a 4.5-inch piece on the top and on the bottom. And that should equal 48. The 2 sides, I'm not going to worry about. I'm going to add maybe, it's not going to be 4.5. I'm going to kind of keep it rectangle. So I'll actually just see what I have left of that fabric and sew it on each side. And I'll make this top fit the width. But that's where I'm headed. So I hope this inspires you to get into your UFOs, or maybe somebody gives you an unfinished project. Don't overthink the math. That's where a lot of people get stopped. You just have to jump in and start. You could have a graph paper and plan all this out, and you're still going to have hiccups along the way. So this is how I do it. I just get going and power on. So I'm going to cut these, sew them on, and we'll come back. You helping today? Wanted to quickly show you. I've sewn a piece on top and bottom, liking it. And it came out the right measurement. If you get nervous, if the math starts tripping you up on how big of a piece you need to add to top and bottom with seam allowances and all that, just add a bigger piece, sew them on, and trim it down to match that. That's fine. But anyway, I'm liking the way it looks. So I'm going to put a piece on each side. How about that thunder? I can't get over that it's still raining. Perfect day. But here's where I didn't think ahead. So I wanted to show you what I'm going to do. This is exactly how much I have left of this one piece of red. Now I do have a couple little bits I trimmed off. I do have this other one, but I'm going to save it for moving on. It's a different print, but the same tone. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this piece. I don't even know how wide it is. I'll measure it. And I'm just going to cut it in half. And however big that is, that's going to go on each side. And I'm fine with that. And then I've used my whole piece. It's going to keep it a rectangle. I think it's going to look good. That's what I'm going to do. Keep it simple. So I wanted to show you guys, I have my center piece here. My borders are all the way around it. And I am now pinning the 2 sides on. My 48 inches worked out just right. But I'm going to tell you, you really want to pin your border on. If you just lay it on there and sew, you're going to end up with the wrong amount down at the bottom. Okay, it'll walk on you. That's just the nature of these things. So you want to pin it. So I've got it pinned. I'm going to pin the other side on, and I'm going to go to my machine and sew the 2 sides on. Well, the sun has come up. It's a little bit lighter in here now. It's getting a little steamy from all that rain, but I am so pleased with how this is turning out. I've put the sides on. I had these 2 blocks at the top and the bottom, and there's this gap in the middle. I had a bunch of these, just different units, and I just played around with positioning them until I came up with something I like, and I really like the way that kind of continues. Now, I didn't plan this with the measurement, but I actually think weirdly it might come out to be the right size. I'm going to sew it together into a block, which I actually did one down here. And it looks like that. And I just did that positioning because I liked the way it continued the design around. So I'm going to sew this together, sew the 3 blocks together, and we're going to see if the measurement works. If not, we'll figure out an adjustment. Probably it'll have something to do with these corners. I kind of think I like these stars in the corner. Maybe I'll sew corners on to make it the right size block. We'll figure that out next, but it's working out so far. Kitty cat approved. She has to sit up here and watch. Here we are. This is where we're at so far, and I am really happy with it. I used these 4 Emily's star blocks that I had left over from another project. I had exactly 4, and I added corners to them for the 4 corners and trimmed them down to 12 1/4, which is what size these blocks are. And I mostly like them, but not 100%. But first, I want to show you how I did that. So let's go to the cutting table and I'll show you how to put those corners on. Here we have our block, and I want to show you how I put the triangles around it to make it into a larger square or set it on point. There are formulas that you can use to do this, and you can easily find them online. However, I don't have an internet connection up here or good enough phone service to get that, and I also do not have a setting triangle ruler up here to figure that. So I needed to be able to figure it out without knowing how to figure it out. So here's what I did. If you go to the center of your block, on this block, I can see the center. If this were a log cabin or something, you could draw an X and find the center. I've got the center of the block. I'm going to measure from the center out to the corner. And it's just above 6 1/4. So we're going to just call that 6 1/2. All right. We're going to add an inch and call it 7 1/2. Okay, so I measured from the center out. We're going to bump it up to 6 1/2 and add an inch. It's 7 1/2. So I have cut 7 1/2 inch squares. This was a square. And I've cut those in half to make triangles. And that gives me 4 triangles, which will go around my block. That's a really simple way to figure it. It's going to give me a slightly oversized square. I'm going to sew these on. So I'm onto the 2 sides, then the other 2 sides, and that will give me this. Here's my block, one of my blocks. Now I need it to measure 12 1/4 inches because that's what all my other outside blocks measure. I don't have a large enough cutting mat here to do that, nor do I have my 12 1/2 inch square ruler. So this is going to be a little tricky. So I've been thinking about the best way to do this, and here's what I've decided. I need 12 1/4. Half of 12 1/4 is 6 1/8. So if I measure 6 1/8 away from the center, that should be just about right. Of course, this is a 6-inch ruler, but I'm going to lay it down on the center line, and then I'm going to come over about 1/8 of an inch. I'm just doing the best I can. None of this quilt is perfect, but we're getting close. And I'm going to draw a line with my water erasable marker. I'm going to test this out before I actually cut. We're going to see how this does. Now I'm going to do it on this side. And this water erasable marker is nice because it's going to allow us to test it out. Now if I measure across here from one blue mark to the other, it should measure 12 1/4. And it does, thank goodness. So I can trim that off. There's always a plan B, you know? We all get off without our correct equipment sometimes, and let's measure that. And it does, it measures 12 1/4. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, we're going to do the same thing now. This direction, I'm just going a little bit away from the center. These are blocks I had made years ago, so they are not perfect. And if my little points get chopped off a little, it's not the end of the world. I think it's great that I'm actually going to get them into a project and out of a UFO pile. That's 12 1/4. So let's trim that up. 12 1/4. We're in. Now that we've got the corners on, here's what I am not in love with. This is so scrappy and happy and bright and, well, not really bright, but it's sparkly with all the different light fabrics. And then I feel like we threw these dark corners on there and they're just sort of stuck there. And I'm not in love with that. But I don't have access here to more big pieces of different background fabrics. That's what I have. However, I'm standing here puzzling over it, thinking, not in love with that. And I look down and I have got, remembering, I've got this whole box of odd half square triangles and half square triangle parts, which include a bunch of these. And I'm thinking, what if I add them to the corners and just, I don't want that one there, it's right there. Make it a little bit scrappier. Doesn't that look better already? I think it does. And it makes me feel happier. There we go. I just feel like that has a little bit, it goes a little better with the whole flow rather than this one that's totally dark. So what I'm going to do is I am simply going to go to my machine and sew these corners on. I'll show you how I'm going to do that at the machine. As it turns out, my half square triangles that I had cut, or the triangles for them, are actually all different sizes. So I decided to sew some of them on. And I also decided to do a little bit of string piecing on some of the corners of my blocks. And I love it. It's coming out so great. So here's what I'm doing. Here's one of the triangle pieces that I have, and it's one of the ones that's a little larger. I'm just placing it on here. That's going to be too big, but that's fine. We'll trim it off. And that looks good to me. I'm not going to worry if they're all in exactly the same place. This is just much more interesting. I'm placing the edge of my 1/4-inch foot right on the edge of that. And I'm just going to stitch all the way down. This was actually a piece of half square triangle that I took apart from something else. It's like turning into such a fun challenge on this project. Okay, so we're going to flip this one back, and that's good. Now this is too big, but we'll go trim it down after a bit. So let's go to the next corner. Here's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take one of these light strips. I had some random strips, and I'm going to just lay it down. I'm trying to go kind of straight, but I'm not worried too much. And I'm going to place it there and stitch down. Going a little crooked, but that's all right. There we go. And then all we're going to do is press this back. Trim that off. And we're going to get another piece. and put it face down on there. So I've lined up my two strips and I'm putting my 1/4 inch foot down and I'm going to sew that down. And now I'm going to press it back. And I need one more little bit. Let's see if I have a little something. Here's a little bitty piece. I bet that'll fit right there. And I'm going to slap that one on. And this is coming out so interesting. I'll finish this block, then we'll go trim. Here's an example of one of my finished blocks. I've got a few strings, a triangle, a few more strings. This one's a little crooked, totally fine. So happy I decided to go with it that way. What I'm going to do is just turn the block over, and now I can clearly see where my extra fabric extends and needs to be cut off. I'm just going to cut that off. Whoops. And cut this one off. Just lining it up. Do that on all 4 sides. And your block is now ready to go in the quilt. And I'm so excited with the way this is turning out. There we go. This is where we've ended up. Now, I lowered the quilt on my design wall because it was all the way to the top and I needed more space. So you can't see the whole thing, but the bottom looks just like this. And I'm really, really loving it. Now, my first thought when I was just looking at it yesterday was, okay, I've got that brown. I'm going to do maybe a 4-inch brown border. So I cut it and I put it up here. And looking at it now on the camera, it doesn't look terrible, but it's just really heavy for the quilt. And I thought, oh, I don't like that. So I did have another piece of red. It's a different print than this, but it's very similar, and I cut it narrower. This I really like. I really like that, where this was just kind of dark. You don't know till you try, or at least I don't. That's how I do these. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with this 2.5-inch all the way around. Then I started playing. I have this whole bin of 2.5-inch half square triangles, all beautifully trimmed and everything. I think one of the last quilt retreats I was at, somebody was giving these away because they were just like over it, and I took them because I need more half square triangles in my life, apparently. I don't know, but I took them and I thought, maybe I could do this little border up here. So that is, right now, that's the plan. I'm going to put this red all the way around and I'm going to work on these little blocks. This is how I go about making these little blocks. I have a stack here beside my machine, and I have my half square triangles and my light squares stacked the way that the block's going to look. This, for my brain, works, okay? The whole trick here is figuring out what works for your brain. For my brain, this is how I do it. Then I can just pick up some of these, reach over my camera here. I line up the 2 edges, put it under my machine. This is my 1/4-inch foot on here, and I'm just going to stitch all the way down. Just running the edge of my 1/4-inch foot with the edge of that fabric. Then I'm going to grab another one, and I do some of these, then I do some of these, because I don't know. Sometimes I struggle to pay attention to the same thing for too long. That's how us creative types are, right? All the way down. Just running the edge of my 1/4-inch foot with the edge of that fabric, and I just work my way down, and I'll just chain piece a whole bunch of these. I want to show you guys my new iron. This was gifted to me by my dear sister-in-law, Chris. It belonged to her mother, and when her mother passed away, she gave it to me. This is my new favorite iron for when I'm off grid. It's made, I think, out of brass. I'm not totally sure. It looks brassy to me. It's nice and smooth. It's hot. It has a slot here where I can put coals in it. So I've done that. And I've been letting it get warm. You can also just heat it on, on the fire or the stove or whatever. But it is nice to be able to put those coals in there, and it has a wooden handle so the handle doesn't get too hot. And it is slick as a whistle. I love it. And I've got all of my blocks made. Aren't they the cutest little things? When you open them up, okay, and you see the back, if you, I'm going to try and show you, pop that seam. Well, not really pop it. You just sort of bend it, and it'll open right up. I have to put my glasses on. There we go. And it'll just lay as flat as can be. I didn't leave any stitches open or anything. I just did it. I'll show you another one. When I sewed my blocks together, I did them all so the seam was going towards the blank piece of fabric, away from the half square triangle. So then you open it up and it'll just naturally, bing, just do that. Just by itself. And then I can press it and there will be no lump in the center. So let's press a couple of these and you can see what they look like. So here's my little opening. That's about hot enough. It'll keep getting hotter. And there it is. Boy, I couldn't be more pleased with these. My point is 1/4 inch away from each edge, so those are going to just stitch together perfectly. I just had to chime in quickly because check this out. I am down, see if we can zoom in there, to the last bit of thread, and I have about 3 inches to go. Am I going to make it? I think I'm going to make it. I made it. Good morning, friends. It's a new day, new outfit, new day. So we're working on this. I have folded my quilt up over the design wall because it's outgrown my design wall. And I want to show you where we're at. So happy with it. And I've got all my little blocks. And I really like the way they were going across. And here's what happened. I miscounted because I'm a human. I had it figured what I thought would go around. And I knew I had a bunch of half square triangles. So I really wasn't worried. I made what I thought I needed. And then I'm like, oh, I need more than I thought. No big deal. Well, it kind of was because I have plenty of half square triangles, but I don't have enough 2.5 inch light squares. And I don't have any of that type of fabric with me. So it's either just stop, or that would be silly. I would like to keep going. There goes the cat up the wall. She's crazy. But so what I'm going to do, Dale sat here with me and puzzled with me over it. And I kind of like the way this looks. This was kind of my original plan, was to put some like sticks in between. If I do that, I can make it where I have enough. So then my next thought was, well, what size do I make them? And I was working on the math, trying to figure it out. And then I thought, forget it, Sarah. You've a whole stack of 1 1/4 inch strips. I don't know why I have them, but they were in the stuff I brought, probably from a log cabin or something. So I'm just going to use those and I'll make it work. We'll make the length work. And I'm going to do all different color strips in betweens and have that go around. And I think I'll alternate them like this. There we go. Okay, wanted to give you a quick update. I am really happy with the way this is coming out. I love the look of the little sticks in between the little blocks there. I think it looks so much more interesting. However, as you can see, I still was short blocks. So, you know what? I'm just going to go with it. I had a couple random fat quarters and I cut a strip 4.5 inches wide, sewed it to some of the ends, and I'm just sewing it on. I measured. I know that this looks crumply and rumply. It's hard with my sad iron to properly iron a whole top, so I'm not. I am measuring though, so I can assure you it's rectangle. My two sides measured 75.5 inches long. So when I sewed the strip on, I cut them to that length, pinned them, and sewed them on, and I'm going to do the same with these two. And that's where we are. Really loving it so far. I hope you enjoyed that video and maybe it gave you a little inspiration to dig into your stash, see what you've got and how you might be able to put it together into a fun quilt. So come back and watch our next episode, if that's what we call it. And what we're going to do is put a nice border on here. I'm going to put it on the long arm and quilt it. We're going to put a binding on. I like to think I might make some pillowcases to go with it, but that might be a little ambitious. We'll just see what happens. That'll be next time. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great day and go make something beautiful.